Is this finally the answer the ARMY was waiting for, or is it just a new puzzle that was deliberately thrown? When Taehyung and Jungkook finally touched on BTS's world tour, the atmosphere wasn't like a big, screaming announcement. Quite the opposite. Quiet, full of pauses, and full of meaning that makes anyone who hears it pause. Many thought this would be a yes or no moment, but instead came up with short sentences that felt like code. Sounds familiar at first. A small smile, a relaxed tone of voice, and a choice of words that seem safe. But the more we heard, the more it seems that something is hidden behind their answers. Jungkook seemed to hold back, as if he wanted to say more but chose to stop halfway. Taehyung, in his trademark style, responded rather ambiguously, not ruling out the possibility, but also not opening up to outright hope. And that's where the speculation began to explode. The ARMY, which had been waiting for certainty for a long time, immediately caught the little awkwardness. Why does the answer feel spinning? Why is there a small laugh after too long a pause? Why do the words now and later sound so emphasized? For fans, this is not just a casual chat. It feels like an incomplete piece of a puzzle, deliberately partially shown to test the reaction. Social media is full of theories. Some believe this is a sign that major preparations are proceeding quietly. Some feel they are deliberately withholding information because the time is not right. There were even those who claimed that they were goosebumps because of the way Taehyung looked at Jungkook before answering, as if the two already knew something that should not be shared. At this point, the question is no longer whether there will be a tour, but rather, when will they dare to say it honestly? What makes this moment feel emotional is not just the content of the answer, but the feelings left behind afterwards. Hope, longing, and a little fear mixed into one. ARMY was made speechless, not out of disappointment, but out of the realization that BTS might be standing on the brink of something big. And until that firm answer actually comes out, one thing feels certain. What Taehyung and Jungkook just said isn't the end of the story, but rather the beginning of a much larger speculation. As time passed, that piece of the answer continued to be replayed, analyzed, even dissected word for word. ARMY realizes that this isn't the first time Taehyung and Jungkook have spoken in such a way, calm on the surface, but full of emotional stress behind it. There are unspoken longings, restrained desires, and invisible promises that seem to hang in the air. For many fans, their attitude actually felt more honest than any official announcement. Some soldiers admitted to feeling mixed up. Some are smiling because they believe they are fine coding. There are also those who suddenly fall silent, realizing that the process towards a world tour may be more complex and emotional than imagined. Jungkook looks like someone who wants to protect fans' hopes from falling too hard, while Taehyung seems to be trying to say, wait a little longer, without actually saying it. This is where the emotional shock works. No big appointments, no dates, no cities or stadiums. But it is precisely because of this that the impact is felt more strongly. That dangling answer forced ARMY to be patient, to believe, and to read between the lines that had never been written. Many felt that this moment was like a wordless confession, that they knew very well how much fans around the world longed for. And perhaps that's the whole point of all this. Not about the confirmation of the world tour alone, but about the relationship that is still maintained in the middle of distance and time. Taehyung and Jungkook didn't close the door, but neither did they open it wide. They stood in the middle, staring at ARMY with a look that said more than any sentence. Until the day when the answer is finally pronounced clearly, one feeling will continue to live, that something is being prepared, and when the time comes, the world will again shake. But behind all the speculation, there is one thing that cannot be ignored. The way they talk feels different than usual. No haste, no excessive joking, and not just a formality. There is a subtle emotional load, as if the topic of the world tour is not only a matter of schedules and stages, but also about mental readiness, the right time and promises to themselves. A lot of ARMY felt that vibe, that their answers were born out of a much deeper consideration. Some fans even admitted to feeling tickled by the implied sincerity. It's as if Taehyung and Jungkook are saying that they don't want to return to the big stage just to meet expectations. They want to come back with the right reason, with the energy intact, and with a meaning that is not half-hearted. And that awareness, although touching, also makes the chest feel tight, because the long-held longing finally met with a reality that must be accepted slowly. This moment also changed the way many people looked. A world tour that had been imagined as a grandiose celebration now feels like something sacred. Not just a concert, but an emotional meeting between BTS and ARMY after a long journey full of changes. That is why the answer that sounds simple feels heavy, because in it is stored the promise not to return in a haphazard way. To this day, the question still hangs. Do they know the date? Is everything planned behind the scenes? Or are they just struggling to hold back the feeling of wanting to come back soon to make sure everything is perfect? No one really knows. What is clear, after that conversation, one thing changed. ARMY's hopes were not extinguished. They grew deeper and quieter. Perhaps this is the most honest form of communication they can provide at the moment. Not a big announcement, not a sweet promise, but honesty wrapped in silence. And between pauses, small smiles, and unfinished sentences, ARMY captures the same message. When BTS's world tour finally happens, it will come not as an empty surprise, but rather as an answer to a long and meaningful wait.